So we'll start with prayer. Dear God in heaven, we thank you for these Sabbath hours. And we thank you for this initiative that brings us together to study. May your objectives be accomplished for this process. Please help us to that end. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen. So I asked if you could send me through some questions. And there was quite a list, which is in kind of both overwhelming and encouraging. It's clear that you're thinking deeply on these subjects. But like you, I don't have all the answers. I can only come and defend what I know. When it comes to Revelation 17, I don't think I can explain it any more clearly than the previous speakers. I would only just be repeating what they've done. And as I read through the questions, I think what they all had in common was wanting more explanation on the sixth kingdom. So instead of going through questions one by one, I think there was over a dozen. I'd like to tackle it from a different perspective. That might bring clarity to our understanding of the sixth kingdom. So we're going to be using our Bibles. If you remember back to January or last month, Elder Parminder gave 2 studies at the Fiji camp meeting. The subject was tithing. So tithing is our number 16 vow. And basically, we're being asked to support God's work. Support the movement that has been raised and anointed by God. And we do that by tithe paying. And one of the verses given in that vow is from 1 Corinthians. First Corinthians 9, 8 to 14. So Corinthians is one of the earliest of Paul's writings. Does anybody know where he's writing this from? Where is Paul? I'd like to just even have a guess. No takers. He's from Ephesus. So this is a message from Ephesus to the people of Corinth that are struggling with this new movement. And we'll jump in at verse 9. For it is written in the law of Moses, thou shalt not muzzle the mouth of the ox that treadeth out of the corn. Doth God take care for oxen? What was the purpose of muzzling the ox?
So that they don't eat?
That they don't eat. So you've got this beast of burden working really hard, that is being prevented from eating. And Paul asks the question, does God care about ox? And the answer is yes. God does care about animal welfare. Verse 10 says, but is this written more for us? For our sakes, meaning Paul and his companions. It is written, he that plougheth should plough in hope. What's the hope that people plough for?
Jeho mzda.
It's like to get the results, what they get from it. I don't know how to translate the word that she used. Like
To
the pay,
get a result,
they get the pay, I would say.
they get paid.
Uh-huh.
Yes, you would expect a reward at the end of your work, your labor. That you don't plow for no benefit. And Paul is expecting to get a reward for his plowing spiritual things. His reward will be both spiritual and material. There'll be the reward of satisfaction in seeing souls saved. That reward is the joy that the salvation of a soul brings. But there are also material needs that have to be that are needed on this earth. So in verse 11, Paul says, if we have sown unto you spiritual things, is it a great thing if we shall reap your carnal things? So what are the spiritual things? What's the spiritual thing that Paul is sowing?
To je to jeho poselství o Kristu.
That's the message about Christ.
The message. We might call it the gospel. The word of God. And what are the carnal things? What are the carnal things he's expecting to reap?
Nějaké jídlo, oblečení nebo peníze na cestu.
Food, clothes, or money for traveling.
Exactly. So we'll call that material support. And in verse 12 it says, if others be partakers of this power over you, not we rather? What's this power that Paul has over the people? I'm going to labor for you and you're going to support me in that labor. Remember, Jesus said the laborer is worthy of their hire. Others have that power over the people of Corinth. Who would that be? Who would be laboring for the people of Corinth but would expect payment in return? Payment that would assist them in providing for them.
Would it be like
So Paul and his
local workers?
companions, oh, sorry.
Like local workers also have the right.
Yep, there could be local workers. So if you're living in Corinth, there would be roads that need maintaining, perhaps a sewage system, water is needed. This city is going to need protection. Who provides that? The state power, Thomas said. So that would be Rome. Rome is going to sow to the people of Corinth carnal things. Material support, whether it's water or protection, and they expect material support in return. That material support is not called tithe. What's it called?
Daně.
Daň?
Taxes.
Taxes. So the labourer is worthy of its hire. The government is doing a good work and it expects to be supported. So when we think of the word carnal, it means fleshly. And sometimes we think that it's something that's always bad. But it's not. It just means that it's physical, it's material. It's just not spiritual. So a Bible passage that's been in the news this week is Romans chapter 13. So if you'd like to turn there. Romans 13 was written after, the book of Romans is written after the letters to Corinth. And what Romans 13 is a commentary by Paul on what Jesus said in the Gospels. So Jesus said, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. That is, give Rome their taxes. And Paul's going to expound on that saying. So we're just going to read verses 1 and 2. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained or ordered of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. So there's no human authority that exists except by God's permission. We need to be careful about what Paul is not saying here. Paul is not saying that God approves of every civil government. But that governments do have a God-ordained purpose. It's the Christian's duty to submit to them. And we know that there are limits to that submission. I don't know, it was Peter or John said, I'd rather obey God than men. But for the most part, we are to submit to the earthly government. These are messages to the church of Ephesus. Because the church of Laodicea is struggling with this concept. The Jewish church struggles under the control of Rome. They are going to resist the government of Rome. And it will be to their damnation, as it says there in verse 2. So Paul's point is that the ruling power of human government is entrusted to humans by God for our welfare. And that the rise and fall of these governments, these authorities, is in God's hands, not ours. Christians are to support the authority of the existing state. So in verses 3 to 5, we're going to see the ideology of that state. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. Verse 3. So rulers love good works. Do something good in the community.
You froze, Terrie. We didn't hear you for a
Do
moment.
something bad.
Yeah.
If you do something bad, you better be afraid of that power. The government will praise you for your good work. The government will punish you for bad works. Verse 4 tells us that they don't bear the sword in vain. So they exercise wrath upon those that do evil. So the purpose of government is to protect the godly from the ungodly. Protect the godly from the ungodly. Or to protect the law keepers from the law breakers. And verse 5 says, therefore you need to obey. Not just because you're afraid, but because it's morally right. Not because you fear the government, but because you want to do good. And verse 6 and 7 says it's for this cause you need to pay your taxes. And not only pay taxes, but give on it, treat respectfully the government. So we see in verses 3 to 5 the ideology of this good government. They have power. That power isn't bad. It's God ordained. And we know that Rome protected Paul. But Rome also killed Paul. So there is a tension within Rome. So any questions there about 1 Corinthians or Romans 13? So what I'd like to do next is to trace this concept through the Bible. Where do we see the first city that needs a government, so the first city in the Bible?
Is it paper? Babel. Když Nimrod stavěl Babylon.
Okay, so you're suggesting Babel? But we have to go back before Babel. Go back to Genesis chapter 4. Genesis 4 is the story of two brothers. And how Cain murdered his brother Abel. So Cain murders Abel and God comes down to investigate. There'll be an investigative judgment and then an executive judgment. So God says to Cain, "What have you done?" In verse 9, "Where's your brother?" And Cain answers rhetorically, "Am I my brother's keeper?" In Cain's mind, he isn't. In God's mind, he is. So we're seeing a disconnect here between God's will for humans and versus human will. We are to care for our fellow human beings. So that's the investigation. And now in verse 11, God will give judgment. "And now thou art cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth." So Cain is cursed. And how do we understand curses? This is no arbitrary judgment. This is God saying to Cain, there's a blessing you're not going to have now. You're going to be a fugitive. You're not going to be able to settle down. You'll be a vagabond. That is, you won't be thought of well. And why is that? Who's going to want to live near Cain? You would chase him away from wherever you are. You might even want to punish him or kill him. So Cain's going to have to run. He's and he says, verse 14, he's going to worry that everyone's going to want to kill him. So God's going to set a mark upon him. Now, how is Cain going to deal with this problem? Is he going to just keep running and living in fear? Verse 16 and 17. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, and he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. Cain building a city is his answer to the curse. He wants to cancel the curse. What will a city provide? The curse was that you're going to be a wanderer, that you'll be, what's the word? A fugitive. Fugitive means you're running away. Oh. Building a city is going to give him permanency. Structure. Protection. God says you're going to wander. Cain says, I'm going to establish myself. So Cain's going to be living with guilt. Fear of revenge. And a loss of a relationship with God. So he's going to build a system, a civilization. This is going to give him security. That's writing funny. Identity and community. Because what is Cain going to do with this city? He's going to give it a name. And he's going to name it after his son. So he's going to create a lineage. Something that's permanent. So what follows from is this a bad thing to do? Has Cain done something wrong here? I would suggest he hasn't. He's done a very human thing. In trying to solve his problems. If you follow on from the rest of the chapter, what comes out of that city building? you're going to see that there is civilization is going to progress. And the progressiveness here can be marked by music, it's verse 21, metalwork, yes, that's verse 22. And verse 20, we have animal husbandry. So we see progress in civilization. It's a progressive culture. You've got art, technology, you've got progress. But what else happens after a few generations? If we go to verse 23, story of Lamech. What did Lamech introduce?
Mnohoženství.
Polygamy.
Polygamy. So we see Eve's curse coming to fruition. It's the first time we really see patriarchy in its ugly way. It's all ugly. Maybe I should have said we see the ugliness of patriarchy. And then what else happens with Lamech? We see more violence. Verse 23, I have slain a man to my wounding and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. So whatever Lamech did, it's worthy of more revenge than what Cain did. So even though civilization has progressed, it's advanced, there's a tension at the very beginning of that city building that hasn't been resolved. It's that tension that separated Cain from God. and that Cain thought that he was not his brother's keeper. That he was not responsible for the welfare of another human being. So some of the issues have been resolved through this city. The issues of the curse. But there's an underlying tension that hasn't been resolved. So we can see here that cities have an ideology in providing security, identity, and community. Cain was trying to deal with his curse by creating a human system. That system was not bad. That city building. The problem wasn't the bricks. The problem was that there's an underlying tension that hasn't been resolved. If we go to verses 25 and 26, Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son and called his name Seth. For God said, she hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began humans to call upon the name of the Lord. And so on earth, we're going to see the continuation of the great controversy. Between Seth and Cain. Between their offspring. Seth will call upon the name of the Lord. Cain will build a city. It's not that city is bad. It's what Cain is expecting that city to do. He's trusting that city to take care of all of his problems. So Seth, when you think of the lineage of Seth, oh, silly. We can think of the mountain. When you think of Cain, think of the image. So the mountain is not the image is not the mountain. We could replace those pictures with the woman of Revelation 12 and Jezebel. I won't draw it. So the woman of Revelation 12 is not Jezebel. Jezebel is not the woman of Revelation 12. So what Cain has done now are the very seeds of earthly government. They have a purpose. They have a need. But they don't provide for, they don't solve all the problems. Okay, so any questions there about Genesis 4?
I have a question, if I can. I'll need you to show me when Thomas stops translating me that I can continue because I can't hear him.
You can go now.
It seems like creating the city was like result of something bad. But
So
we say the governments
Go
are
on.
good. Sorry. We say the governments are good. So I don't know how to put it together.
Governments are needed because of ungodliness, because of the violence of human beings. Governments are needed. This is one of the results of sin. They are God ordained, but they are not perfect. And that is because there is an underlying tension that has never been resolved. So just like with Cain City, it works for a while. And then that underlying tension becomes very evident. If there had not have been any sin on this earth, there still would have been government, but it would have been totally God-directed. Sin brought the need of human government. It serves a very good purpose. It can start well-intentioned. And yet there is always a tension that will bring that government to its end. So Cain City is like the seed of earthly governments. Providing protection, security. Once a people start using agriculture as their form of survival, they're going to have to stay in one place. and they're going to need irrigation, water, protection from invaders. So human beings are going to start forming villages and then cities. When something is God ordained, sometimes we can say it's just common sense. But throughout the Bible history, we can see that these governments, these city-states, governments, and then kingdoms will rise to fill a good purpose, but ultimately fall because they are limited in solving problems. If I could give you another example. Now, where are we going to go to as far as the next city is concerned? In Bible history. Now we go to Babel.
Babel. You mean Babel?
Yes. Between Cain's city, or the city of Enoch, and Babel, what happens? The flood. Yeah. And why does the flood happen? Because the sons of Seth run off with the daughters of Cain. Okay, so that is, let me give you a verse. Where is that?
Well,
Oh, so Genesis chapter 6, verse 2. The sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair and took them for wives. The sons of God were the offspring of Seth. The daughters of men were the offspring of Cain. They were not meant to mix. Once that happened, God threw up their hands and said, we need to start again. We see the flood. So that's Genesis 7. And now we want to go to Genesis chapter 10. And we have the story of Nimrod. Nimrod, verse 8 to 10. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, which was in the land of Shinar. So Nimrod goes beyond building a city to creating the first kingdom. So you can't have a kingdom without a king, and you can't have a king without a kingdom. So Nimrod's the first king. And even though the Bible doesn't explicitly say it, we know that Babel in the land of Shinar is the story of chapter 11. So we know how it ended. But how did it start? Nimrod's a mighty hunter. So why do you need mighty hunters? What happened because of the flood? So if we go back to chapter 9, Noah and his family leave the ark. The land's been devastated.
They began to eat meat.
And God says, you can eat animal flesh. That's chapter 9, verses 4 and 5. And God says, you can eat the meat. But the meat that you eat will kill you. And we see that the lifespan of human beings drops a lot when they start eating meat. Which was an incredible blessing. As an old theologian of the SDA Church used to say, you don't want a Stalin that can live for 900 years. Okay, 70 is enough. So meat eating will result in human lifespan decreasing by a large amount. But it also had another consequence. What was the other consequence? What effect did it have on animals? Suffering? Yeah.
A začali se požírat.
They started to eat each other.
Yep. Yep. So they become more aggressive. Why are they aggressive? Because of fear. No animal wants to die at the hands of a human being. So animals are going to be full of fear. And that means they become dangerous. And so mighty hunters are needed. Does God care for the animals? Yes, he cares for the oxen. They care for the oxen. That fear has never left animals when they are about to be killed. And that's why animal welfare is a part of radical feminism. As radical feminists, we believe in animal welfare and like climate change, you know, being good stewards of this earth. So I might digress for just a minute. I know we need to stop here.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I can interrupt.
There is a really good book called Eating Animals.
Elder Terrie?
I'll tell you the author. Jonathan. Saffron 4. It's worth a read.
Elder Terrie, can you hear me?
You're very soft. Are you speaking, Monica?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that it's about the time we finish our first presentation.
Yes.
You don't have to like cut, just close anytime you want. I'm just letting you know.
Sure. I just want to make one point and then we'll
Okay.
come back.
Mm-hmm.
And the point is that Nimrod has a purpose. Building Babel has a purpose. You've got wild animals. You need to protect the people by building a city and building walls. So the beginnings of Babel are necessary. When we come back, we'll discuss what went wrong. So we'll just pause here.